Travis Hunter is out for the remainder of the 2025 season. We'll tell you what his dynasty value is next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano, and joining us today on Wednesday, of course, is Matt Williamson. We've got a packed show for you guys today, including some dynasty price checks on Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. We're going to talk about RJ Harvey's dynasty value. But Matt, we have to have a melancholy Wednesday here because you and I are massive supporters of Travis Hunter. We've been aggressive in getting him in every dynasty league. He's now out for the season with an LCL injury. What is your feelings on him kind of long-term and in the dynasty leagues that you play in?
Yeah, really disappointing because I was expecting the second half of his rookie season to be far, far more productive than the first half. Even with the Jacoby Myers trade, that didn't worry me at all. I thought he was starting to kind of come around a little bit. I don't know where to rank him. I mean, I'm not dumping him now. I can't get what I want out of him. I'm just going to see how it goes. He sits on IR in all my leagues, unfortunately. I wonder, coming back from injury, trying to get ahead of ourselves here, will he still be a two-way player? And if so, will it be, if not, will it only be offense? They seem to like him better on offense. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, he's going to be a full-time offensive player. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's good for us. I mean, not that the injury is good for us, but we have to drop him significantly in dynasty ranks, right?
Fabs, what do you think?
Well, you guys know that this was part of what scared me about him is that when you're playing two positions, that's double the chance of you getting hurt. And now he's hurt. And, I don't know if he was playing offense or defense in practice or, exactly where and when the injury happened, but it happened. And I would suggest that maybe long-term, this is a good thing because are the Jaguars going to do what you suggest and potentially just utilize him on the offensive side of the football moving forward, starting next season? Maybe. I don't know. They drafted him very high. They moved up to get him because he was a two-way player. So are they somewhat, wanting to be stubborn and try to still utilize him as a two-way player? I wouldn't like that if I'm in a dynasty league.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a silver lining, maybe it's that the Jaguars decide, this kid's talented and maybe occasionally we use him at corner, but it's probably better for us to just use him as a wide receiver moving forward. Long-term, that could be good for dynasty. But if the Jags are stubborn and they want to continue to utilize him as a two-way player, this risk is going to be greater than it would be for a player who plays one position. And that is obvious. And that's why he scared me coming into this season.
So, Matt, I actually think he's a better corner, I think his upside is better at corner than it is receiver. But when you trade the number 5 pick and a second-round pick and a 2026 first-round pick, you kind of can't make him a full-time corner because you're just not going to get the value there. And that's why I think I wouldn't be surprised at Fabs' point that he does play full-time receiver moving forward. My question for you is, if you don't have him right now in dynasty leagues, and I know that you and I basically do, would you be willing to trade a future first-round pick, like a random 2026 first-round pick, to go out and get him, or you kind of just hanging tight?
I lean towards yes. I still think there's immense talent there. They have so much invested in him. We've said that over and over. We've been on the air here for 4 minutes, and we've mentioned it 3 or 4 times. Their massive investment. They're not going to, not use him. I mean, I'd be shocked if he plays. I'd be shocked if he's not a full-time receiver with maybe some corners sprinkled in. I'm still betting on the talent, which you just said you think his upside's higher at corner. I disagree with that. I think his upside's as high as everybody in the league in at wide receiver. Not that he doesn't have great upside at corner too. But yeah, especially if I'm a good team right now. Because I'm a good team right now, I don't need him. and my first is probably going to be late.
Yeah. Fabs, I wanted to ask you about Brian Thomas Jr. because he's somebody going into the year was being valued as wide receiver 7 on Dynasty League football. He's down to wide receiver 11 and he's dropping. It's going to be closer to wide receiver 21, 22 when we get the latest batch of ADP from November. Is now the time to buy Brian Thomas? I know that he's dealing with a high ankle injury, but I would think he's going to see more targets once he comes back.
Yeah, I just don't know if I want to part with a first-round pick for him. Let's remember, and I said this, way back when, his best games, his best numbers were with Mac Jones, not Trevor Lawrence. He was kind of a okay wide receiver with Trevor Lawrence, and with Mac Jones, he was elite. And so if you're bringing back Travis Hunter and assuming maybe he goes to wide receiver full-time, I don't know. They clearly have found something in Parker Washington. They acquired Jacoby Myers. Brenton Strange will be back. That receiver room is getting a little crowded. So if I was to try and trade him, I'd want a 1. But if I was looking to acquire him, I wouldn't want to give up a 1. So that leaves some fantasy managers between a rock and a hard place. If you can get a 1 for him, you may want to go ahead and do that. I just don't think you are right now because his numbers were dreadful. The catches, the catch rate, awful. And now he's hurt. So he's not exactly a guy that's at the top of my list of wanting to acquire, especially if I'm looking to make a run at the playoffs and a championship this year.
I think you nailed that, Fabs. But my one question is, I can't imagine his stock ever being lower than it is today on November 12th, 2025. Sure. Could we get away with some kind of different package without a 1?
I mean, it's possible if you can get maybe a player in a second, that could be something that I would consider. Just first round picks are so valuable.
I've got a trade. I've got a trade that happened this morning on Dynasty League football. It's DK Metcalf and a second round pick for Brian Thomas straight up.
I'll take Thomas.
I think I'd probably go Thomas too.
So there are ways to go out there and get him without giving up that first round pick. The only thing I wonder, Matt, is maybe he's just a bad fit in Liam Cohen's offense.
I think that's true.
Yeah, and I wonder if we get to the offseason and they look at the receiver core and it's okay, we want Travis Hunter to be our full-time, slot receiver, our version of JSN, right? The guy that can move all around. And we just don't need to have this outside receiver who's only a deep threat. If we can trade him for a second round pick, let's do it and reinvest those resources somewhere else.
I think that's very possible because he has a very niche, skill set, size, speed, outside the numbers. And I don't think that's what Cohen wants at all. I think he wants a tough guy over the middle. I mean, he reinvented Mike Evans in Tampa.
He was with Cooper Kupp in when Rams had him, when he had one of his best seasons ever. Like, he likes a certain type of receiver for sure.
And it wouldn't be hard to retain Myers. And then all of a sudden, if Washington has a strong second half of the season, you're going, that's a pretty good trio. And what, Noah Brown's there too, or who's that? Denami Brown's there too.
Brown,
yeah, I mean, at least he's depth guy.
Yeah.
A lot of the offense went through Strange early in the season too. So I don't think you'd be short on pass catchers. If you're the Jags and you can flip Brian Thomas to the Bills for a first-round pick.
This is exactly the team I was thinking.
Yeah. I'm like, everybody
what elite quarterback needs a number 1 more than Josh Allen? I mean,
right. Deep threat.
Well, he doesn't even necessarily need a 1. He just needs Gabe Davis 2.0, like somebody that's healthy that can stretch the field, right? I just won't be surprised if we get to this offseason, and because Jacksonville doesn't have a first-round pick, if they're trying to find ways to recoup some of that draft capital, and Brian Thomas is the easiest way to do it.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that totally adds up. And I think we'd be thrilled as Thomas owners if he got traded.
Yeah. And honestly, that's probably, if you have him in your dynasty leagues, that's probably what you're hoping for now, because we've seen 2 seasons with Trevor Lawrence. And unfortunately, the numbers just aren't there when he's under center. So let's talk about another situation that's developing, and that is RJ Harvey in Denver. What does his dynasty value look like? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. In this season, it is important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself just checking in on a teammate or reconnecting with someone that you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirit, and reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I notice, like for me, when I talk through things, even for just a few minutes, it helps clear my head and get me back on track. And over 5 million people have used BetterHelp. And with over 30,000 therapists available, finding support is just a few clicks away. And this month, don't wait to reach out, whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out for a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, because taking that step towards support might just have you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'd also like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Matt, I want to talk about RJ Harvey because JK Dobbins suffered an ankle injury in that win over the Raiders, and it doesn't sound great right now. It seems like he's going to go on the IR list. It's potentially an injury that could cost him even more time than just 4 games. With Harvey expected to get more work, what's your kind of read on his value long-term?
Yeah, I never loved him. I don't own him anywhere, but I sort of regret that now, that I think he's behind a great offensive line. I trust Payton to get him the ball as a receiver and runner if Dobbins is out of the mix. And I don't think any of us should be shocked that Dobbins didn't last the season, So running backs, to me, I care more about situation even than talent a lot of the time. And I think his situation's pretty strong, and we probably should have seen this coming. What's his value? I'm not giving up a future first for him. I don't think he's worth that. But I think he's going to be a fantasy starter for the rest of this year and probably the next couple of years.
Fabs, what do you think?
Yeah, Dobbins is obviously on a short-term contract, so Denver can decide whether or not they want to bring him back or not. I guess the one concern for me is that they didn't feel like Harvey could be their guy this year because when Dobbins was healthy, Dobbins was the dude. And even, when Harvey had, the big game a few weeks back, like he still wasn't getting a lot of touches and his snaps were not blowing up either. So, yeah, I mean, he's not a player that I think is worth like a first-round pick in any sort of trade. I do agree that he's going to be a starter the rest of the season if Dobbins is in fact out, which, I mean, we haven't really heard anything from Broncos at this point, but I'm sure we will hear moving forward in the next couple of days. I guess I'm on the fence about him. I don't think he's going to turn into some superstar running back in fantasy, but I think he can be useful, especially in PPR leagues where he's a very good pass catcher. I just do wonder if like Denver doesn't bring in somebody else to be the starter again, and it's a committee. And, we're dealing with that kind of mess for the next couple of years because they have to bring somebody else in next year. I mean, they have to. So whether or not that's a player who will compete to start, who will be the starter, or will play behind Harvey, that is really kind of remains to be seen. But they've got to bring somebody in next year. And so I don't know that we can just hand RJ Harvey the starting job right now and expect him to be the guy, without any questions asked.
Matt, he's being ranked in like the range of running backs that, like, okay, Kyron Williams is 1 spot ahead of him. Chase Brown is 1 spot behind him. And I get it. Like, he's probably like talent level in that tier. But those guys, whenever they play and whenever they're on the field, they're producing like low end RB1 numbers. I wonder if we'll ever get that from a Sean Payton running back consistently because he likes to use so many different running backs.
Yeah, even with the Dobbins injury news, which probably hasn't accounted for that ranking next to Williams and Brown, I would still much rather have Williams and Brown. I mean, they get the ball.
And that's honestly the most important part.
Right.
And we also just get remember, a lot of dating back to New Orleans, it's always been a committee with Payton, at least most of the time. I mean, you go back to, when you have Alvin Kamara and you have Mark Ingram and, they Pierre Thomas, they would always use a couple of running backs. Now, in a lot of cases, those guys were successful, especially Alvin Kamara, obviously. But again, like whether it's bringing Dobbins back or drafting somebody or bringing somebody else in, RJ Harvey's not guaranteed that starting job next year. And that's why I still have a little bit of concern.
Yeah, that's a good point, Fabs. I think we know that he wants to use a committee, and Kamara was ultra productive, but Kamara is a borderline Hall of Famer. Like, it'd be crazy not to have used him. I mean, do we really think Harvey's going to be close to as good as Kamara in his prime?
Right.
No, I mean, and most of, not most, but a good portion of Kamara's production came when Drew Brees was the quarterback. That's not quite the same thing in Denver right now.
He was good with Derek Carr too. He was good with, but Derek
Carr, good with Derek Carr.
Yeah,
there might be a big difference between Carr and Bo Nix
with the mess that's going on in that quarterback room right now in New Orleans, though.
Now let's talk about the quarterback change, with the Giants. Jameis Winston expected to start this week. If Jackson Dart is out with a concussion, that seems pretty likely. Is there anybody in this offense that you feel comfortable starting now that Jameis is the starter? Because if Russell Wilson was a starter, I'm just benching everybody. But Matt, what do you think? What do you think about with Jameis now as the starter?
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. He is a fantasy kingmaker. I mean, he's got a long track record at a lot of different spots. It doesn't make a difference. Now, Wandell, Slayton, Theo Johnson, Tracy. I mean, none of those guys are high-end starters, but depending on what your roster looks like with injuries and bye weeks and where you're at, I would break all ties in Giants' favors.
Yeah, listen, I got to be honest with you. When I thought Russell Wilson was going to start, I'm like, damn, do I really want to play Theo Johnson this week? Mm-hmm. Do I really want to, roll with Wandell Robinson this week? Now I feel more comfortable. Guys, Jameis Winston made Jerry Jeudy a 21-point per game player. Jerry Jeudy stinks, okay? He stunk in Denver, and he stinks now. From a fantasy standpoint, I'm sure he's a wonderful human being. And fantasy stinks. He was averaging like 10 points per game in every game not started by Jameis Winston in his career. And he had a good game last week. It was the first one he's had, all year, basically. So Jameis is just a guy that, like, I know, and I remember, and maybe you guys remember the year where he had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. And I remember in the fantasy championship that year, I started him against Houston, and he was throwing pick sixes like they were, candy at Halloween, and he drove me nuts. But that's Jameis. But Jameis also makes the wide receivers more attractive from a fantasy perspective. The tight ends as well. Theo Johnson's been really good for the last 7 weeks. He's been very good. Right? I mean, he's a startable asset. Mm-hmm. And if Russell was starting, I don't know if I'm going there. But now that it's Jameis, I'm going to go there. Jameis is under center. I'm going to continue to play Wandell Robinson. I know Darius Slayton got a little bit banged up last week, so I don't know if I want to talk about him too much. But, yeah, Jameis Winston, he may go out there and stink, but he wouldn't have been any worse than Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson, you want to talk about washed. In the dictionary, under washed, Russell Wilson's picture is there. So he's been bad. This is, and Marcus, this is what we talked about earlier in the week. I remember I said, unless the Giants start Jameis, why don't they start Jameis? And now they're starting Jameis. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and beat the Packers, but I will say this. They got a better shot at beating the Packers with Jameis than they do with Russell. And our fantasy teams have a better shot at getting production from Theo and from Wandell and from the Giants players now that they have Jameis Winston under center.
We need to make a rule that Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco, they just have to start every single season with some team. We know they're not good, but they make it more fun.
But not the Jets. Not the Jets.
Yeah,
not the Jets.
Not the Jets. Except for the Jets. Not the Jets. It's like when you're a kid, you have the all-time quarterback. That's the Flacco and Winston, which I'm going to ask you this, Matt. We've got Joe Flacco playing your Pittsburgh Steelers this week. We've got Winston against the Packers. Of these two quarterbacks, which one do you feel more confident starting?
Flacco. I mean, we just saw him. Neither one's going to run, but Flacco just ripped the Steelers apart. I mean, Steelers are playing defense a little differently since then. They've made some changes that were long overdue, but he's going to throw every time, and they still don't have an answer for Chase. I mean, he's going to throw for 300 yards.
Fabs?
No, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely Flacco for me.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
And it's not even, Green Bay's defense is not even playing great. Hell, Micah's done nothing for like 2 or 3 games in a row. So it's not like the defense. It's not. Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything against the Eagles on that game was awful, anyways. But it's not like their defense is like formidable. Where like, I don't want to play any quarterbacks against the Packers. So I picked up Jameis in a league, and I'm going to start him this week, but it's a super flex league.
Okay.
So, it's a redraft super flex league. I'm going to play him. But if I had Joe Flacco, I'm playing Flacco.
All right, let's do some dynasty price check. Just today, AJ Brown said that we should drop him in our fantasy leagues. But what about in our dynasty leagues? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. And if you need parts for a project fast, Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. I mean, you don't want to be waiting for parts. Supply House is going to help you out. So join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's not a better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, or if you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who scores the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks. Anything you want, it's available on FanDuel. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. No one else is doing that right now. So it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late game push in the fourth quarter. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Podcast. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Matt, let's do some dynasty price checks. I want to start with AJ Brown, who said to drop him in our fantasy leagues. I remember when Steve Smith did this one time.
When did he say this? I hadn't heard that.
It was just before we recorded our podcast.
Okay.
Today.
Was there someone who asked him a question about fantasy and he came back with that response?
His exact quote was, "If you have me in fantasy, get rid of me."
Well, damn. Okay.
I mean, he said this on Twitch, by the way, which is really fun. Matt, what are you doing with him in your dynasty leagues?
He's one of my all-time favorites, but I am highly concerned. And my biggest reason is I think it's pretty clear right now that Devontae Smith is the better player. I mean, just a better football player, which I'm shocked at, but I love Smith too. And I think Brown doesn't move like he used to. I mean, just the film has really gone backwards in the last 365 days or so. He's a big, heavy guy that's had some lower body injuries, and he just looks a lot more sluggish to me. And I wonder if it's kind of the beginning of the end, which I hope it's not.
He's 28.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem old, but you're right. He's a bigger guy that has a history of knee injuries. Faz, would you give up a future first-round pick for AJ Brown right now?
No. He just said get rid of him.
Right.
What do I want? Remember when Roddy White years ago had said something about like, don't play me this week kind of thing? And then everyone freaked out, and how do you ever bench Roddy White? And then he ended up not having a good game or not playing. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear my guys say, fantasy managers, I am going to go out there against Detroit this week, and I am going to smoke their defensive backfield so bad that you're going to be so happy you drafted me. I don't want to hear him not get rid of me. So no, I don't even know what you can get for AJ Brown right now. Would it be like a second and a player? Maybe that's the common theme with our dynasty trades here. But I mean, he's not exactly young either. He's been in the league a while, and as Matt mentioned, you've had the lower body injuries. He's not the same guy this year at all. He's had more bad games than good ones. I don't know. Maybe the Eagles need to change their offensive coordinator. I have no idea. But it's just the passing game has been, ups and downs, peaks and valleys. And the best receiver from a fantasy standpoint on a consistency basis has been Dallas Goedert in that offense.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas Goedert's been really good. Devontae Smith has been better than Brown, but that ain't saying much. He hasn't been great in fantasy this year, but I'm not giving up a first-round pick for A.J. Brown. Hell no, I won't do that.
I'd try to flip him for one of the Jags receivers we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, you could try.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give up a first, but there is part of me, Matt, that feels like I think this is his last year in Philadelphia. I think he's tried to do his best to
I
be.
can see that.
He's kind of quiet quitting right now, and he's not being a diva about it, but I think he clearly wants to be somewhere else where he can be featured.
They should send him back to Tennessee as a punishment.
And honestly, that's exactly the situation where I was thinking, like, send him back to the Titans. I wouldn't be surprised with the way that dude is wired if he has one more monster season with a lot of targets. But it feels like we're starting to descend right now on his career.
Yeah, and we always know people get so excited when players change teams. That's when you trade them. Yeah. I mean, like, oh, you got to get him into a passing first offense in June or whenever he gets traded, and then you get your first round pick out of him or whatever.
Let's talk about his former teammate at Ole Miss, DK Metcalf, 27, prime of his career, wide receiver 20 on Dynasty League football right now. Matt, what would be the most that you would be willing to trade for Metcalf?
I think he's a sell too. And not that he looks bad, but he's getting very few targets, and most of his targets are like at the line of scrimmage. Now, he might have a different quarterback next year. I mean, for better or worse, but I don't think he's going to have a different coordinator. And if he's not getting targets much now, I think he's going to have more wide receiver competition next year. I mean, I'm pretty certain that the Steelers were very, very close to making a deal for one of these receivers. Like they're going to add somebody. I mean, I know this has been going on for 2 years with Ayuk and blah, blah, blah. Trust me, I'm tired of talking about it. But it could be a first-round pick. It could be a third-round pick. It could be a free agent. But I think he'll have more wide receiver competition. And no team in the league uses wide receivers less.
What do you think, Fabs? Because I don't see him getting better as he ages. I don't think he's that type of player. Because his game is built on size and speed, but he is only 27.
I like him this week. I will say this. I'm going to start him, even though the numbers have not been great in 2 of the last 3 games. He's not worth more than a 2. And a lot of that has to do with just question marks at the quarterback position. I don't know who his quarterback's going to be next year. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? I have no idea. And listen, DK hasn't been terrible this year. He's been bad lately. Like early in the season, he was good. Yeah, his floor was good. It's not like he was putting up these massive, Jackson Smith and Jigba type of numbers, but 15, 16 points per game. Okay, and that's fine. With DK, it's only been lately where the numbers haven't been as good. And again, I think that could be another high scoring game against Cincinnati. So I say he bounces back. But who's the quarterback? I mean, off the top of my head, who the hell's their quarterback? If Aaron Rodgers decides that he's going to go to ayahuasca heaven and he's
Will
not
Howard
going to play football anymore, I mean, who's going to be their quarterback? Kyler Murray, Matt already said that Tomlin hates him, so it's not going to be him. I don't. Are they going to? You're right. I mean, Will Howard. Do I want DK catching balls from him? Probably not.
Jameis? What about Jameis? No, I'm just joking.
I know. I would love that. I would love
Maybe
that.
it'll be Flacco. We know how much Tomlin loves Flacco.
He hasn't played for
the
the Steelers yet. Yeah.
Let fantasy managers decide who the quarterbacks are going to be of these teams. I'll make the decision, damn it. And then DK Metcalf will be a fantasy star. But yeah, he's got question marks. And to be quite honest with you, if you offered me like DK for AJ Brown right now, I'd take it.
Yeah.
That's one trade that I would do, because I think Brown, as you guys have mentioned, is kind of on his way out. And even though there's question marks about who DK's quarterback's going to be next season, I think DK is going to have more dynasty value than AJ Brown for the rest of their respective careers.
Real quick, I got one more. I want to get to you. Saquon Barkley, currently RB9 on Dynasty.
Before you do, I want to throw one DK thing in there just because of my Steeler experience. Fab's right. The last 2 weeks were hideous. This past week, the passing game was as bad as it ever could be, and it was mostly Rodgers, so I'm not really even going to blame Metcalf for that. And here's my insight. It's 2 weeks ago, Metcalf should have never even seen the field. There was like a bad flu bug going through the facility, and because they have nothing else at receiver, he knew he was going to be a decoy. He was immediately like IVing at half, and it never should have been out there. So don't hold 2 weeks ago against him. I bet he does fine against Cincy,
And that's why we have Matt Williamson on the show. Real quick, I just want a yes or no. Matt, would you trade a 2026 for Saquon Barkley right now?
If I'm in the hunt and I think that can push me over the top, that's the only reason I would.
Fabs?
Same. But I'd have to really need a running back to put me over the top to win a championship, because you know my opinion on Saquon Barkley.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Matt on Twitter at Williamson NFL. You can follow Fabs at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.